And welcome back, everybody, to the Podcaster Nation. That's right. I said welcome back because I know you were just listening to our stuff and you loved it so much you wanted to come back for more. And you know what? That was brilliant. That was a fantastic decision because we have a lot more for you. Why do we have a lot more for you? Because this is the podcast that's about podcasters. It's for podcasters. It's done by podcasters. And our guest today is, amongst other things, a podcaster. That's right. See, you are brilliant. I told you, folks. Way to go. Here we go. All right. This is the place where we all come together to raise each other up. And this is the place where the rising tide raises all ships. So let's get sailing. Bring in our awesome guest today. I can't wait to hear about this topic and about her journey. So she is the author of Designing with Love, the Essential Instructional Design Handbook, which is a mouthful for me, but my goodness, I can't wait to hear more about it. And she's the host of the Designing with Love podcast. Please welcome Jackie Pelegrin to the show. Jackie, how are you doing?
Doing great. Thank you, Rory. Thank you so much for having me on your show today. It's nice being on the other side of the mic for a change.
Yeah, and you and I were just having that conversation. I love it. This
Yeah.
is your second guesting experience, is that right?
Yes, I did one when I had a guest that was on mine through Podmatch. And then she said, why don't you come on my podcast, which is an educational podcast, Out of the Trenches with Dr. Dana Goodyear. And so she said, I'd like you to talk about the journey because a lot of K through 12 educators want to come out of the classroom and they want to go into instructional design or e-learning development and they want to still stay in education, but they're burnt out on the classroom. And so her podcast is about helping educators when they're in those trying times in those trenches. So I gave some advice about that and how they can help transition because sometimes they just don't know where to start. It's just like with anything, right? You go to change positions or careers and you're like, where do I go? What do I do? So yeah, so it was fun. I liked it.
Absolutely. All right. And of course I asked you right away. So how do you
Yeah.
feel about the whole guesting experience? Other than, having to kind of let go of the reins, it seems like you're having a good time sitting in that chair.
Yes, I think I've always been a talker. I've always loved talking. My mom even says, Jackie, close it up a little bit. I'm like, oh, when I was younger. So I don't have a problem talking. I think that's why this is such a natural thing for me is doing this, being a host, being a guest. So yeah, it just seems like it's a natural fit. I love it.
Perfect. Perfect. I love your backdrop, by the way.
Thank you. With the
I
books.
yeah,
Yeah.
I think that's it's a little rustic and I like that.
Yeah.
That's really cool. All right. So for those of you who are on the video portion of this, you'll be able to see
Yeah.
it. If you're on the audio,
Yeah.
you just have to trust me that it looks cool or I wouldn't have said anything.
Right.
But all right, here we go. So Jackie, I already kind of launched into interviewing you without even giving you a chance to say, hey, who the heck are you? Tell
Right.
everybody a little bit about who Jackie Pellegrin is and kind of how you got into this whole crazy biz.
Sure. Yes. So I'm a native of Arizona, probably one of the only few natives left in Arizona because a lot of people came out here, from other states like California, stuff like that. But yeah, born and raised in Phoenix, although the summer heat is the hardest because you just never know how hot it's going to be. And so if I can describe the Arizona heat in the summer for those that aren't familiar with it, it's a dry heat, which is true. But when it's windy in the summertime, it feels like a giant blow dryer blowing across your face.
Oh,
It's crazy. Yeah, it's
oh,
rough. But we do have the northern part of Arizona, like about 2 hours north of us is Flagstaff, and we've got Prescott, which is a little bit further south. So you can get the 30-degree cooler weather in the summer, so you can head up 2 hours north, and so that's the great thing about Arizona. It's very diverse, which a lot of people aren't aware of, and we've got the Grand Canyon, one of the seven wonders of the world. So it's great. Yeah, it's a lot of fun. Yep. And so I started off, I got my bachelor's degree in business and in marketing with emphasis in marketing. I thought I was going to actually go into marketing, like, you know, different types of research, marketing, and things like that. My stepdad's sister, that I don't converse with them anymore, but at the time, I wanted to go to do that. And I had done an internship with her over the summer at her business in California. And I said, Laura, I really want to do this. This is great. I love it. And she goes, okay, in order for you to do this, you have to go back to school, get your bachelor's. And I was like, okay, great. I'll go get my bachelor's. So I went to university. I went to the community college first, got all my gen eds. Then I went back, got my bachelor's at University of Phoenix, graduated, went to her and said, Laura, I graduated, right? She says, yes. And I said, can I get a job? Not because I'm family, through marriage, but because I'm really excited about this, even if I start as an internship. She's like, well, I don't hire anybody unless they have experience. And I'm like, what? So that was like a shock to me. And so I was like, all right. So
wow.
it kind of deflated me a little bit, but since I was a little kid, maybe like 9 or 10, I always wanted to get my MBA. And I told my mom this. I said, Mom, I want my MBA. She goes, Do you know what that is? And I said, Yeah, it's a master's in business administration. And she's like, she's blown away by that. So I always imagine myself being this woman carrying a briefcase going into the office. So I decided to talk with an enrollment advisor after I got my bachelor's because I knew I always wanted a master's. And he said, okay, if you come back to University of Phoenix, we'll waive your first 3 classes. And that way, instead of taking 13 classes, you only have to take 10. I'm like, sold. There's no,
Right?
yeah. I'm like, yeah, I'm not going to a different school. So I went back, got my master's, and worked for different companies. Like I worked for Discover Card, did customer service there, and then I was like, no, I think I need to move on. Did Vanguard for a little bit with customer service and doing, but then when tax season came along, it was really stressful. So I said, no, I think the customer service thing is, I need to break away from that. So then I got a job at Walden University doing admissions, and I loved it. It was great. And then they had this program that came along, a master's in instructional design and technology. And I started looking at the courses in the program, and I was like, something just clicked in me. There was like a light bulb moment that went off, and I went, this is something I've always wanted to do. I just didn't know there was a name for it. And as I started looking at the classes, I was like, they had a certificate option too. And thought to myself, okay, I already have a master's. Do I really want to go back and get another master's? But then as I kept looking at the classes and getting deeper into it, I thought, this is always this is just what I want to do. It's meant to be. And so I just decided, no, just go, just both feet in and just do it. And so I did. And I got my embedded certificate halfway through. And then they had a position that opened in employee training and development for an instructional designer and for a trainer. So I went to my manager and I said, Candace, what should I do? Because the trainer position sounded really exciting too, because learning and development has always been something I've been interested in. And she said, think about what you want to do every day in and day out, and and just ask yourself that question and then answer it. And if you can answer that, either trainer or instructional designer, and what you want to do every day, then that's your answer and that's what you should apply for. And I said, well, I love designing things. I love creating things. So she said, there's your answer. So I applied for it. And the manager, yeah, the manager was like, okay, you haven't finished your master's yet, but you're getting your master's here. So she said, I'll make a deal with you. And I've never had a manager do this before. She said, I'll make a deal with you. If you finish your master's, I'll give you the job. I was like, wow. So I did. I got the job and started, and that's the rest is history with instructional design. So I've been in higher education for 18 years, going on 18 years now, and I've been an instructional designer for 15 years now, doing corporate, doing higher ed, mostly corporate and higher ed, instructional design and training and stuff like that. So yeah, that's my journey of
Wow.
just the corporate, yeah, instructional design. Yep. And then 4 years ago, I got the opportunity to start teaching for Grand Canyon University. So I had never taught college courses before. So what am I getting myself into? Can I really manage this and do it and work full time? But they're online classes, so you can go in whenever you want. They just have a stipulation. You have to be active in the class 4 out of 7 days, and you have to check your messages. And I was like, okay, it's online. That means I don't have to go to campus, and the curriculum is all set. It's already predetermined, and you just add to it as an instructor, and you make it your own and stuff like that. So I was like, well, I think I could do this. So I've been doing that for 4 years, and it's made me a stronger individual as an instructional designer. I learn from my students; they learn from me, so it's great. Yeah, so that's kind of that in a nutshell. Yeah, for that
Nice.
part. Yeah,
Nice for that
yeah,
part. Exactly. It's
yeah,
funny.
for that part.
I've done over 600 600 episodes of,
Yeah.
hosting and guesting and everything, throughout my career here. And I don't think I've ever had anybody tell me that they were basically called to get an MBA. Just in general. I just need an MBA. I don't think I've ever heard that
Yes.
before. I mean, as a
Right.
youngster, how had you heard of what an
Yeah.
MBA was? Where'd that come into your mind from?
I don't even remember. I think I had heard it a couple times, or I maybe had read it. Maybe I picked up a Forbes magazine. I don't know. It's funny. Maybe in a doctor's office or something. Maybe there was a Forbes magazine or something. But all I remember is that I had this picture in my mind of imagining me dressed in a suit with a briefcase going into the office and maybe be an executive someday or something like that. But it's funny because even before that, I thought I was going to be a lawyer. And then I was like, yeah, maybe not. Maybe that wouldn't be a good thing. Because I thought, can I really do that? And can I, argue with the other side? And I'm like, no, I'm not. My mom's like, you're not good at that. So don't do that. And I'm like,
Oh,
okay. So she was honest with me. And I'm like, all right. Yeah, you're right. So yeah, I think all those different not really failures, but just like pivots kind of, if the things didn't happen the way they did, I wouldn't be where I am now. So I always think, it was meant to be. So yeah, it's kind of neat how it all
yeah.
happened. Even though I didn't go into the market research in that area, then I wouldn't have found my calling in this, and it wouldn't have led to teaching. Then it wouldn't have led to the podcast and the book. So it just all happens, just without you really even knowing it until you're like, whoa, okay. And then you just make that decision, or am I going to do it or not? And so I just took that leap of faith and just did it. Yeah.
Love all that. Absolutely. Leap of faith. You got me right there. I love it. Great,
Yeah.
great part of the story. I can absolutely tell that I'm talking to an educator. You have all of the, educators speak, and abbreviations and vernacular. I love it.
All right.
Um,
Cool.
so someone who is an educator though, um, who decides they're going
Right.
to go ahead and do a podcast. That doesn't always happen. So what makes you go, all right, I'm going to start the
Right.
Designing with Love podcast. And where does that name come from? Because it sounds like it's a question you get asked a lot.
Right. Yeah, exactly. So the podcast came from a desire of wanting to be able to give my students something extra in the class. Because when you're teaching online, you don't, of course, go in the classroom. You don't have that face-to-face time with them, and um, it's all asynchronous, which means that you're not real time with them unless you have a Zoom meeting like we're doing right now. And I do set up weekly Zoom meetings with them, but for the for the instructors that teach on campus, they are able to have guest speakers come in and have that authentic experience. But for online students, they don't get that. So I said to myself, what's a way that I can replicate that in the best way possible? And I thought, why don't I do a podcast? Because then that way I can bring in my expertise and do it in that format of like 10 to 15-minute solo episodes of just chunks of information, bite size, where they can't get that in the classroom, and then bring in experts and do interview episodes, interview students that graduated from the program and stuff like that, and then just experts in the community. And that's where it all started. And then the Designing with Love came about because it's a labor of love, what I do. And so I thought, well, I want to keep design in there somewhere, but not have it be clunky like instructional design. So I thought, well, what do? I design with love. So I'm like, well, I want to make it actionable. And so I was like, designing with love. And then that's where it came about. Yeah. The name.
Nice. Nice.
Yeah.
And you've been doing this for a minute because you just dropped episode 49 as of the recording of this podcast. So by the time
Correct.
this comes out, you will have broken another barrier, which is, hitting it's 20, then it's 50, right?
Right.
So you'll have busted the 50 episode mark. Congratulations ahead of time
Thank you.
for that. That's so
Yes.
cool. So you've been doing this for a minute. You do interviews and you do solo episodes. So I guess, part of the
Correct.
question that I have in listening to it, because I got to hear several of your episodes, is, who are you doing the podcast for? Who's the person that you're speaking to when you're doing the podcast?
Right. So I'm speaking to educators. It can be K through 12, higher education, also people in corporate as well. Because the great thing about instructional design as a field is that it's so versatile. You can do instructional design, which is basically like you're basically designing learning experiences for people. So if we think about where are opportunities where we can design learning experiences for people, that can be anywhere. That can be corporate, it can be higher education, K through 12, nonprofit, military. But what's interesting is that instructional design, not a lot of people know this, but it started in the military in World War II. So the individual that started what they call the ADDIE model, and it's a phase process where you do analysis, design, development, implementation, evaluation. So that's what ADDIE stands for. That was started by an individual in education who saw a need for military training, being able to get the soldiers
Hmm.
ready for that training so that they could go out on the battlefield and do that. So it's interesting. It started in that military type of training, and then they saw a need for it in education because he had a background in education. So yeah, and the rest is history, where it just grew and evolved and went from there. So once I had that passion for, and I started learning about it, I was like, wow, this is really neat. So yeah, it's kind of
Neat.
cool how it all just kind of evolved from there. Yeah. So
Neat.
it's definitely educators and people that are always curious about the field of instructional design, because whenever people ask me what I do, I tell them I'm an instructional designer. They kind of give me this look like they're a little confused about what it is. And then once I explain it, then they're like, oh, I get it. So, those
Right.
curious people that are like, what is this? And what is it all about? And so once they learn what it is, then they start getting interested in it. And I've actually had subject matter experts that come to me and they're like, I've done this work as a subject matter expert, and now I want to actually be an instructional designer. And I'm like, wow. So you spark that interest in them and that curiosity, and then they're like, yeah, I want to do this. This is really really neat. So yeah, so it's a very
Nice.
interesting field for sure. And yeah, so I really like being able to bring that to people and make it accessible, make it something where they don't feel like it's out of touch for them, but it actually is attainable, and just kind of give them some tips of how they can go about obtaining a career in this area if they want to, or at least, explore that option. Yeah.
Perfect. All right. Now, full disclosure. Here we go. Little confessions of the host at this point.
Sure.
I had a pretty good idea of what it was, but I did look it up to make
Did you?
sure I knew what I was talking to you about. I had
Yes.
no idea it came from the military either, so that's fascinating. But right now, I'm
Yes.
guessing that with the people who are listening to this podcast right now, about half of us are going, "Oh yeah," and the other half are going, "Okay." So give me your best elevator pitch, right? Just a minute or two.
Sure.
Concise explanation for anybody who doesn't know what this is. What is instructional design for the folks who don't know?
Yes. Great. I love that. So instructional design is where you look at a learner-centered approach, and you want to make sure that you're providing the best experience that you can for those learners, so that whether it's personal or professional, you want to make sure, you ask yourself that question, what should learners know and be able to do upon completion of whatever they're doing, whether it's a training, professional development. So my job as an instructional designer is to come, or any instructional designer, is to be able to look at whatever it is, whatever problem you're trying to solve for that moment. And you're like, okay, there's an issue with something performance wise, and you're trying to figure out what is the issue. So you always do a needs analysis and you talk to those individuals. And so it's basically just collaborating and working with others, working with the learners, working with stakeholders, subject matter experts. So it's a lot of collaboration, working with others, and just trying to determine what's the end goal. What am I trying to accomplish? What is the organization trying to accomplish at the end? And then you just help them get there, and you work with them to come up with the best solution. It may not always be training. That's the thing, and that's why needs assessment is so important. But you just go through the steps, and then sometimes instructional designers will actually create the learning experience itself. So whether it's e-learning, or sometimes it's a blend of in-person and the e-learning itself. So it just depends. But you go through that process and do the design, mock-ups, things like that, and prototypes, and we call dirty designs. And then you just kind of go from there, and then you implement it, and then you evaluate it at the end, and you see, did learners actually learn what we wanted, what we were aiming for them to learn? And then if not, you go back and you redo it. So it's just an iterative process of where you look at it, you do it, and then you refine it. It's always continuous improvement. So yeah, that's what I love about it.
Love it.
Yeah.
Love it. Well, let me tell you, first of all, that your explanation, even hearing it now, was much better than what Google gave me.
Really? Oh,
Oh yeah,
wow. I
much
love
better.
it.
Hit home even harder with that one. So I had a pretty good idea from Google coming in, but now I actually understand exactly what it is. So I appreciate you doing
Yeah,
that. Um,
sure.
Let me also say that it's like, okay, what is instructional design? Well, we literally design the instruction, and I'm like,
Right.
huh,
Right.
probably should have figured that out on my own.
Design the instruction. Yeah, and there's always a difference between curriculum and instruction. That's the thing that educators tend to blend the two together. They think curriculum equals instruction, and that's not always the case, because the instruction is you're taking the curriculum and you're able to help the learners disseminate that, right, and understand what it is, because the curriculum alone is not going to teach them. We have to be the facilitators and the people that say, okay, this is how you make sense of it. Because my students ask me questions all the time. They're like, what about, I'm reading this, but I'm reading it 5 times and I can't understand it. Can you help me make sense of it? And then that's where I come in and I help break it down a little bit better for them, because instructions, they can only do so much. I do videos and all those types of things to help break it down for them and make it more digestible, because this is a term that we use all the time, is cognitive load, and it's the science behind learning and how our brain can only process so much information. So think of it like a flashy video. If you have a flashy video and it's got sound and it's got backgrounds, flashy backgrounds, and then you've got the audio and all of that, and then you've got all kinds of text on there. That's a lot of information to take in at one time. And so that's one of the things I always tell my students. I'm like, think of the learner, put yourself in the learner's shoes, and if you were to watch that video and it had all of that going on at the same time, would you be able to understand and digest all that? They're like, no. And I'm like, okay, then don't do your assignment like that. You have to make sure it's digestible. Yeah. So it's always thinking about that end result in the learner. So I always put myself in the learner's shoes first and foremost before anything else. So
Nice, nice.
yeah.
I love that distinction between the curriculum and the instruction. It's so subtle, but really important with with
Right.
what you're talking about. So I
Yes,
love that.
exactly. Because the instructional designers that I work with, we always make sure of that, because subject matter experts, they're great at their craft. They love what they do. I'm good at my craft as an instructional designer. I can't know everything that they know, because I work on courses like counseling, social work, psychology. I know some of psychology, but counseling, I'm not a counselor. I don't know that. So that's why I need to rely on them to give me that information. Now, over the last 12 years, I've learned a lot about counseling, and they tell me I could actually get a degree in it. And I'm like, really? I don't know about that. But yeah, so it's funny, because if I become the expert in everything, then why do I need a subject matter expert? Because then I can just do it myself. So yeah,
Hmm,
so it's very interesting how they tend to think that, oh, okay, you're gonna put a nice bow, put it in a package, put a bow on it, the curriculum's ready to go, and then I just show up to class and I'm like, no, that's not what it's about. So yeah, it's very interesting how we have to dispel that myth with educators, that it's, you don't just package it and then just put it out in the universe and that's it. So it takes a human. AI cannot, I don't think AI will ever, I don't think we'll ever create AI teachers. I don't think we could ever do that, because there needs to be that human mind, that human touch. Like you said, you looked it up on Google and you're like, hey, I liked your definition better. And it's like, yeah, I mean, Google does a pretty good job, but AI can only do what it can kind of grab out of the internet. So yeah,
right,
exactly. Yep.
right. I love it. And now you've taken this this field, this topic, you turned it into a
Right.
podcast, which was incredible enough. But
Yes.
then you turned around and decided, okay, that's not enough. I need more to do in my life,
All
and,
right.
and I need to go ahead and put this into a book.
Right.
So you wrote the book, Designing with Love, the Essential Instructional Design Handbook.
Handbook. Right.
Okay.
Yeah.
So first about the book is what is the idea of the book? Is it to teach what it is, teach how it works? Is it instructional? Is it educational? Is it action steps? What's the book
Right.
about?
Yeah, I would think it's a combination of what you just said, all of that put together. What's interesting is it's kind of, these all fed into each other. So the teaching led to the podcast, and then the podcast led to the book. So I have Buzzsprout is my host for my podcast because it's audio only for mine. But they do this weekly newsletter, and one of the newsletters said how to monetize your podcast and just passive ways to make income. One of the ideas was to write a book, and I thought, wait, this is great because I already have the content. So yeah, so it's neat. So I took what it's the top three, I think, right now, out of the top 5 episodes, and it's the top 10 instructional design models and theories. So one of my coworkers, his name is Ryan, and he's a teacher too. So he teaches the classes. He and I are on the same team. We're both instructional designers. He said, Jackie, why don't you do a whole series about the different models and theories and really give like tips, strategies, some, real world examples, things like that. And I'm like, Ryan, that's a great idea. I should do that. So I did that. And with the help of AI, I was able to actually get some outlines and do all of that. And I just finished the whole series. And then and it actually ended up being more than 10, it ended up being 18 models. That's how expansive this field is. There's so many models and theories out there. So yeah, so I just took all the content from the episodes and then just put it in chapter form. And again, I asked AI to kind of help me out a little bit. I didn't look at it as cheating. I looked at it as being able to take that content, right, and just massage it a little bit and then put my own voice into it. And then, so now I have 20 chapters of a book. Never would have imagined that would have happened. But within a week's time, Rory, I'm not kidding you, a week, I had the 20 chapters written out. And yeah, and so I have a beginning chapter that goes over all of them, kind of gives them a taste of what it is. And then the other 18 chapters are each model or theory has its own chapter. And then at the end, it's putting the theory into practice. So great, you got all this wonderful information. Now what do you do with it? And so in each chapter, I've got the tips and the strategies, but it's not a copy of the podcast. It's more than that. So it gives it in a different format. And I also have reflection activities for them to do at the end of each chapter, which is not in the podcast. So it's good because I don't want it to feel like, great, I'm getting the podcast for free. I'm listening for free, but then I have to go buy the book to get that doesn't make sense, right? No, like, yeah. So I want to make sure it's not just in a different format, but it really gives them that actionable information as well. So yeah,
Wonderful.
so it's really fun. And it's nice to be able to not only repurpose the content in a different format because people learn in different ways, but also be able to have something. I know for me, I like things that are tangible that I can hold in my hand and I can flip through it. I don't like ebooks too much. I mean, they're okay, but I don't know about you, but I'm the old school type where I like to be able to hold a book and feel the pages and then take a highlighter, highlight things, put page markers in it, and just with a PDF, it just doesn't feel the same. It just, to me, at least. So,
Hmm. Well, I mean, judging
yeah.
from your backdrop, I never would have guessed that you had a thing for books.
Yeah, exactly.
So
Right.
now you and I were talking in the pre-interview about the process of doing the book and
Right.
that you were kind of going back and forth a little between the self-publishing and trying to get a publisher and the hybrid stuff. Any
Right.
thoughts you want to share on that? Because so many people have to go through that and make those decisions. I'm curious what your process was and still is.
Sure. Yeah, that's a great question. So what I ended up doing was when I had the first initial manuscript of the book itself, which is around 125 pages in Word, single space. So that's a pretty good sized book. But I went to ChatGPT. I've been using ChatGPT, and granted, I'm using the free version. I'm not even using the paid, and I was still able to get as far as I did. Now, of course, with the free version, we know there's a limit. At the end of their day, they're like, "Yep, you're cut off." But I'm like, I don't want to. I don't know. I didn't want to pay for another subscription, so I'm like, you know what? I'm just gonna use the free version, and it does a good job for a free version. So what I did was I asked ChatGPT. I was like, "Hey, I have it because it starts to, get to know what your book is like, what your podcast is like. It knows so much about my voice, my style." So I said, "Now, when it comes to publishing, what do you recommend I do? Because you know what my book is like." And it said, "Well, you could go with an educational publisher like McGraw-Hill, or you could go with a hybrid publisher." And it gave me some options of what route to go because I wasn't sure. I was like, should I self-publish? I said, yeah, you could self-publish, but you'd have to get an ISBN. You'd have to market it. And I'm like, oh yeah, I don't know if I want to go through all that with the podcast. I don't want the podcast to fall by the wayside, right? I don't want to give up one thing for the other. So I have to make a choice and balance it out. So that's when I thought, well, maybe hybrid publishing would be good. And so then I asked ChatGPT, so if I go with a publisher, what do I need to be able to present it? Because I thought I know enough to know that I can't just give them a manuscript and say, here, take this manuscript and publish my book.
Right.
So it said you need to have a proposal. Just do like a sample chapter and then get your metrics, do some research about what's out there. What are some comparable books that are in the field and what makes yours different? What sets yours apart? And then my social footprint. What's that look like? What are my metrics on that? So I put together that with the help of ChatGPT, and then it gave me. It's funny though, it gave me research and stuff like that for all of not the metrics, but the what do they call that? The part with the market trends and things like
Oh,
that. Like
okay.
what's like how is this book going to add value, right, for a publisher? So, but it was funny because it gave me data from 2022. Now they say always check your sources in AI, which I do because they can be fake. So I did that and I checked it, but it was like 2022. No, that's 3 years old. It's hard to believe we're saying that's 3 years old, but
Right.
so yeah, but it was good though because it forced me to go out there and actually dig a little bit deeper and do some additional research. And so I was able to find something related to the industry that worked a little bit better. And then I went to Bureau of Labor Statistics and found some data about that because I wanted to show that the industry itself is continuing to evolve and grow and change. So that way the book will stand the test of time. And it's not just going to be a fad or trend, but it's actually going to stand the test of time. So yeah, so that was pretty neat to work alongside AI. I look at it as my assistant and my virtual assistant and my companion. So yeah, so I think without AI, I don't think I would have been able to get as far as I did as quickly as I did. I'm sure I would have been able to do that, but I don't think it would have. I feel like the manuscript is at a good place to where I could present it to a publisher and it would be not perfect. I mean, I'm sure they're going to make refinements and adjustments, but I feel like it's in a good place where I think it could really shine really well. So yeah, I think it's
Wonderful.
yeah, yep,
Well, I'm looking forward to that coming out and be
yes,
able to check that out. That's going to be a great book. All right. Good for you. And I love that you're in
thanks.
that process. Just handle it the way you are.
Yes.
This is Podcaster Nation. So at some point, I do have to ask you about the podcast. Let
The
me get to that
podcast, right? Yep, we'll
now.
do
I'm
that.
so
Yep.
fascinated by what you're doing that I'm asking you all these other questions. And I'm like, oh, yeah, I got to ask about the podcast.
Gotta ask for the podcast.
Right.
Yep, I love
Uh,
it.
with the podcast, let's kind of start with what have
Sure.
you found is you mentioned social media, earlier in terms of the book publishing. What have you found
Right.
is the best way to promote the podcast and what works for you?
Yes, that's a great question because I hadn't really done a lot of social media the first year and really gotten it out there too much. So I think that's why the growth hasn't been as high as I wanted it to be. I'm like I said before we started recording, I'm at almost approaching that 50 mark with the episodes, but I'm at around 1,700 downloads, which is kind of low. So I think what I realized is that I need to market this. And so what I started doing is I use Riverside for my recording software. And
Mhm.
so what Riverside does is it actually now with AI, it gives me magic clips, which are short little 45 to 60-second clips. Even though it's audio only, it still does a good job of that. And it just started doing something called magic segments, where it gives me about 4 to 5 minutes of an audio segment. And then what I started doing was putting those on YouTube, on my YouTube channel, and just posting them on there because people love the shorts. They love to
Mhm.
get just those bite-sized segments. And then I looked at the SEO of my YouTube channel because people are going to be blown away by this. I don't know I don't know. It must be magic or something. But I had, as of the first week of this month, I had 7 subscribers on my YouTube channel, and I had I don't know, about 2,000 views or something like that. Now, as of today, I have about 680 subscribers, and I have almost 70,000 download or 70,000 views
All
in a
right.
less than a month. Yeah. So
Look
wow.
at you. Love
I
that.
know.
All
I'm
right,
like,
good for
wow,
you.
maybe I can start monetizing it. I think if you get to a certain threshold, you can start monetizing it. So I'm like, wow, that's great.
All right.
Yeah.
That's always one of
So,
my questions is have you had a
yeah.
chance to monetize yet? So I'm hearing not
Yeah.
yet.
Not yet, but I'm getting there. Yep. And one thing I started doing too is I've got a buy me a coffee page. So
Mhm.
I set that up so people can do subscriptions, support the work. And so I post on there. I haven't had anyone yet. I think it's because I've got casual listeners, so I'm trying to, really get it out there. But I also use LinkedIn because that's where all thought leaders go, professionals are, and stuff like that. And I've got about 200 around 250 followers and people I follow. So what I do is after each episode, whether it's the solo or the interview, what I do is I use Canva for my artwork and my social media promos. And what
Mhm.
I do is after that, I'll go on there and I'll say, I'll promote it and I'll just say, hey, I just had a great conversation with so and so, or I just recorded, a bulk of episodes on this. And then I do a nice graphic that kind of promotes that. And then I just say, look for the episode to drop at this time. And I do that on Buy Me a Coffee and I do it on my LinkedIn. And then for YouTube, I don't want to overwhelm YouTube. So I just do the video shorts and the segments with that. So, but what's nice is I don't know if everybody knows this or not, but with YouTube, you can actually connect your podcast and you can have your podcast go through YouTube. So I do that too. And I get views on there too. So
Yes.
it's a nice way to be able to kind of do I don't like to say kill two birds with one stone. I don't like that, but that's what it is. You're just kind of knocking out two things for one, two for the price of one, as they say.
Love it.
So yeah,
Absolutely love it. Good
yeah,
for you. All right. So you're not monetized yet, but on your way, sounds like, which is
yes,
great. Which is
yeah,
great. All right, perfect. In the interest of time, I'm going to hit you with my corny question right now because
sure.
something tells me I'm going to get a great answer from you. So, corny question is this: when it comes to doing your podcast, what is it about doing your podcast that you love the most? What is it about doing your podcast that you just can't stand, throw it out a window, hate the most?
Oh, that's a good question. That's a good question. I would say what I love the most is the authentic conversations like what we're having, whether I'm the one doing the interview or, it's my podcast, or in this case, now I'm on the other side of it. I love those because not only do I get to meet people, but I get to learn something and the other person gets to learn something. So it's a two-way street and we come out learning something that we didn't know before. And so I like that. That's my favorite part. I would say the toughest part is doing all the back end work, like the editing and having to upload everything. And it's just yeah, it seems like there's a lot to it. And I always feel like I'm going to forget something. So what I did was I developed a project management board in Trello. And so I have a Trello board for all my podcast stuff. So that way I can have checklists and all of that. So it helps. But there's times where I'm like, oh, Jackie, you forgot something. Duh. So yeah, so that's the hard part is keeping up with it. You have to have a good system to manage all of it. So
Right.
that can be tough
Nice.
sometimes. Yeah. Yeah.
Gotcha. All right. Great answers. Great answers to those questions.
Yeah.
All right. I had a feeling
Yeah.
they were going to be good. So, when it comes to doing the podcast, also, we talked about, what works for you for promotion. We talked about,
Right.
what you love, what you hate, so on and so forth. Um, y- how do you utilize, and we've talked about this, but how do you utilize AI in the podcast?
That's a great question. So I utilize AI pretty much in every part of the process. So I use it to generate my outlines for my solo episodes. So I have actually even used it to generate topic ideas because I don't want to run out of topic ideas. That's the last thing you want as a podcaster, right? Is if you're doing a mixture of solo and interview, you don't want to run out of ideas. So I utilized AI and I was like, hey, I just did this series on the models and theories. What can I do next? Or what are some ideas of what I can do? And I actually gave it some ideas. I was like, here's some things I can work on, like how to work with subject matter experts and how to take feedback like a pro and things like that. So it gave me all these different ideas, and I'm like, oh, this is great. I love this. Good as a starting point, and then I refine it. But then as I get ready to work on each episode, I have those titles and those topics kind of planned out. And then what I do is I go back to ChatGPT and I'm like, great, so I'm ready to work on this one. Can you give me just a general outline of some things I can cover in this episode? And it'll, of course, Just give me that, and then I'll be like, okay, yeah, that's good. No, that's not great. So I'll work with it, and then I'll just keep working with ChatGPT and getting out of it what I need and where I feel like I'm at a good point, and then I'll just, bulk record them and get and do that. And then what's nice is that, as I mentioned, Riverside has all the AI built into it, so it makes the editing a lot easier. But then Buzzsprout, when I upload it to Buzzsprout, it's got the co-host AI. That's a an add-on, which oh my gosh, I love that. That's a great tool. I don't know if you've used like an AI feature before, but I upload it the audio file and it gives me 5 topic titles to choose from that I can just kind of work with. It gives me 2 descriptions, a blog post. Now I have a blog to go with it because of that. So it gives me a blog post. Then it gives me social posts that I can start with. And it gives me chapter markers and the transcript, everything that I could ever want. And so it's really nice because it saves me so much time of being able to do that. And of course, I don't take the whole description and I refine what I'm doing. So I don't take AI at face value ever. But it's nice because it saves so much time. Yeah, so it's great. And I utilize it for my interviews too. I just started doing this. This is really cool. So what I do is if it's on Podmatch, I just take the questions that are on the profiles, as a guest, you
Sure.
can get those questions. And I just take a few of them and I put it into ChatGPT and I'm like, hey, I have a guest interview that I'm planning for. And of course, as you know, you don't want to have scripted questions, but they're more guiding questions just so I can kind of have
Sure.
something to draw upon. And so that's what I have it do. I have it kind of refine the opening statement a little bit and say, okay, here's my current opening statement. Can you help me refine that? Bring in the expertise of the person I'm interviewing, and then have it give me some questions that I can work with. And then it's really great because then I don't have to. And it also does a good job of, it gave me some ideas of how to do lead in sentences. So I can actually have a lead in sentence, then the question. So it doesn't feel like it's choppy, like
Yeah.
question after question, but it actually feels like a conversation. And again, I don't go on script. I just use it as a guide, but it's really great. And then I send that to the person ahead of time and I say, here's some of the questions that are guiding questions, just so they kind of know what to expect because it's kind of nice to have that. So yeah, it works really well to have AI kind of be there to assist me along the way. And then I can do the work that I want to do, which is the creative part and the having those authentic conversations and then let AI do the heavy lifting, as they say. So
Nice.
yeah.
All right. Love that answer. Great.
Yeah.
You definitely have embraced AI
Yes, I
for
have.
sure.
Yep.
I
Yeah.
know I'm talking to an educator right now because you're like, there's a tool. It works. I'm using it.
Right,
It's great.
exactly. Yeah, I love it. Yep. Yeah,
Perfect.
it's nice when you can figure out where you can use it and really use it as that tool and that companion that I guess kind of a companion, electronic companion. Yeah. So
Nice.
it's really great. Yeah.
I'm experimenting with a few new questions here. And so you get one of the brand new ones today. So,
Ooh, I like that.
congratulations. That's right.
Yes.
And I've been waiting. And I mean, I want to give this to somebody who, is open and freely talking and like, really can handle it. So it's a
Sure.
compliment to you. Here we go. Um, as you've been doing your podcast, as you've been, hosting and learning to host and going through the process of being a host, right? So you're back in the
Right.
hosting chair now. So get your brain over on my side of the table.
Yes.
Um, What's been the toughest thing for you to have to either overcome or learn or embrace as a host of a podcast?
Oh, that's a good question. I would say making sure that who I have on my podcast is going to bring value to my listeners because to be honest, I could have everybody in the world on the podcast and try to find something that maybe that would be good, but then I have to really look at the profile of the individual if they're on Podmatch and say, okay, what value can they bring to my podcast? And if and it and know that it's okay to say no, because I can't say yes to everybody. But if somebody reaches out to me, then I'll ask them those questions and I'll say, okay, yeah, it doesn't seem like they're a good match, but I'll give them a chance. I don't want to say no off the bat, but I want to give them an opportunity to say, okay, here's what my audience looks like. Because if they come to me and it doesn't seem like a good match. I wonder, did they really look at my profile very well, you know? And I'm like, okay, interesting.
Yep.
So then that's where I dig a little bit deeper and I'm like, okay, this is, maybe we could talk about this or that, so I give them some options. And if they don't get back to me or if they give me like, okay answers, and I'm like, maybe not, pass. So I've learned that it's okay to say no because I used to be that type of person that would not want to hurt but anybody's feelings or not want to let anybody down. But I'm like, but at the end of the day, it's for my listeners. I have to be able to put them first, and so yeah. So that's
Yeah.
been it was a tough thing to overcome at first, but I've learned that through that process, I've become a better podcast host in that. So, and you've probably learned that too. You know who's going to be a good fit. You just have that intuition. After a while, you get that intuition of who's going to be a good fit and who's not.
Sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, for sure. And I'm with you. It's funny because the name of this podcast is The Podcaster Nation.
Right.
It's pretty clear
It
what we're doing
is.
here. And I have people pitch all the time, oh, I'd love to be on your show and talk about blah, blah, blah. And they don't have a podcast. They've
Oh
never
my gosh.
podcasted. They've hardly guested, and they're not a podcaster. So I'm like, you clearly didn't read any
Right. Any
of
of the
the intro,
information.
but hey, I'm happy to hit pass. Goodbye. No, good. So
Right.
I'm with you. It's hilarious.
Yeah, it
Um,
is.
all right. Before I ask you our final question and we kind of wrap things up, I want to make sure that we get this out there to everybody. Best ways to reach you to find out more about your podcast, find out more about your book. Give us all your contact info so people can reach out to Jackie Pelegrin.
Yes, sure. So you can find me on LinkedIn. Just go with my name, Jackie Pelegrin. There's also as I mentioned, my YouTube channel. It's at Designing with Love. And then the Buy Me a Coffee is the same, Designing with Love. So I do have some different things on there that I'm trying out, like with consulting. So, if anybody wants to kind of learn about podcasting and what it takes, I can help them with that. I can do like a 1 hour session with that. And then also the educational part too. If somebody wants to get into the instructional design field and not sure what to do, then they can go through Buy Me a Coffee and do that too. So
Neat.
trying to offer my services up there as much as I can with
Sounds
that.
good. Got to put them out there. You got to ask.
Yeah.
Absolutely. So good for
Yep.
you. All right. Final question. Here we go, Jackie. All right.
Yes.
What is your best piece of advice for podcasters who are out there who are not quite where you are yet?
Oh, that's a good question. I would say uh, do some research and find an area where you feel like there's a need or where you feel like there's not enough representation for what the area is that you're interested in, and have a passion for it. And then I would say just start, because I think the biggest mistake people make is that they don't think they can do it until they start doing it. And then just, I would say, give it time to work and don't give up, because it's so easy. As Alex says, right, on Podmatch, that how many end up, giving up after a certain period of time. And it's like,
Right.
they may not realize how close they are to actually getting over that hump, and just stay with it, stay the course. So, yeah.
Great answer. Great answer. I knew I'd get another great answer out of you. All right. Wonderful. Uh, Host of Designing with Love podcast and author of the upcoming Designing with Love, the Essential Instructional Design Handbook, Jackie Pelegrin. Jackie, thank you so much for coming on the show, sharing everything that you have,
Yes.
and just with such an engaging attitude. I mean, it's been so much fun talking to you today. Thank you for being here.
Yes, you too, Rory. It's been a pleasure. I've enjoyed being on the podcast, and yeah, it's a lot of fun. So I'm enjoying this side of the mic for sure.
Love it. Love it. All right, folks, that's another fantastic episode of the Podcaster Nation. And the reason we have such awesome podcasters on here is because this is the podcast that's about podcasters. It's for podcasters and it's done by podcasters. Folks, we proved yet again today that this is the place where the rising tide truly raises all ships. So keep sailing.